Hey guys! So I've been leveling my way through Vanilla WoW, and it's amazing to me that there are so many differences between the new and the old game. It's really like visiting an old friend and suddenly all of these old memories flood back that you hadn't thought of in a long time. I guess it's even stranger when you're comparing that old friend to a modern day version of it that has changed substantially. It's Quantum WoW. Anyway, I thought it would be a good opportunity to go over some of the best things in vanilla that have been both from my memories of playing it in the past as well as my current experience playing on a private server. A lot of this is going to be elaborating on some of the stuff I brought up in my last video too. Some of it'll be completely new. So here we go. The weather. You might not notice this as much unless you make certain races, but as a night elf in vanilla, you're introduced rather immediately to this phenomenal rainy weather. The sounds are perfect, and the rain itself looks amazing. There's this awesome misty haze that flows through the rain, and it just kind of makes you look around in awe, like, wow, this whole world is alive. I also happen to personally love the rain in real life as well, so this might contribute to my opinion. There's also other great weather in the game though, like the snow in areas like Dunmarogue. There's even sandstorms. Surprisingly, I thought to myself, have I ever seen this kind of weather in the current game? I kind of remember seeing sandstorms in Teneris at one point, but nothing like the rain and snow. And then I realized that the computer I had back when I originally had Vanilla WoW was awful and was likely so low in graphic settings that I never got to see any of this. Still, my current client was maxed, and I had never seen this kind of rain. I went to Darkshore and waited, and nothing. I did a search for if it still rains, and people said it did in places like Darkshore, STV, and the wetlands. So I went to STV and waited. Nothing. I went to the wetlands and waited. Nothing. I saw people saying it rained in the Valley of the Four Winds. Went there, waited, nothing. So I guess the point is that rain and weather in general is far less common in the current iteration of the game, especially in the old areas. And from what I've read, something I can't even prove because I couldn't find the rain, is that the effects are much less than they used to be with none of that nice haze. Apparently, they were changed in BC, changed again in Legion, but considering it seems impossible to even find weather, it changed way more from the way it was when it was first released in patch 1.1. Suffice it to say, I have been playing for years and years and have not once seen the rain, and my graphics have been up to max since at least Mob or Kata. Atmosphere. This is a lot like the weather, but since weather was so huge, I felt it deserved its own section. Atmosphere is still a key talking point though, and I think Vanilla did it way better. In Vanilla, my favorite race, hands down, was a Night Elf. I just loved the starting area, the music, the feeling of being this child of nature, and no, I'm not a hippie, the sense of duty you felt in protecting that around you, as well as the beauty of everything. I loved the areas that were mostly Night Elf inspired, like Ashenvale was probably my favorite zone. As you can see, I really loved the area, but it wasn't just that. There was so much more as you walked by that just made you go, ooh, I never noticed that before. It's so pretty. One of the things that really annoyed me was when in Kata they went through and redid all the zones. Darkshore was completely changed from what it had been originally, and I did not like the replacement much. The same can be said for Ashenvale, though it wasn't changed quite so much physically. War completely tears up the whole zone now. As you move from one area to another, sometimes not even going that far, the music will actually change as well, which really kills the atmosphere for me. The music in both Ashenvale and Teldrassil is probably my favorite in the game, and while it's still there in some part, it's kind of jarring when the music just keeps changing abruptly. And now instead of a mostly Night Elf zone, with some horde on the edge near the Barrens, the whole area seems like it's on fire and everywhere there is fighting. I don't know why they thought this was a good idea, and they did that in a lot of areas, not taking much consideration into the history areas might have for players. Ashenvale was like my spot. I used to spend hours here waiting for Warsun Gulch queues, chatting and dueling with friends. I made both a Night Elf warrior and a Night Elf hunter, so I spent some good time leveling in the area too. It just feels to me like Vanilla made more sense in terms of atmosphere. Things felt more cohesive and together, while many zones since Kata are just chaos. At the time when Kata came out, I thought it was a cool idea to change everything up. But it's one of those things where you don't really realize how things will change until they do. I found myself spending little to no time in the world anymore, as it just wasn't a place I recognized. I recently leveled a Nightborn, and it was just weird to see what remained and what had been injected in Kata. Even while crossing the Barrens, there are just huge divides in the land. It just makes no sense to me. This is maybe something that should have been done on a smaller scale, maybe change up some zones but not all of them, or maybe it could have been a temporary thing that people could have worked to fix. I guess that's not the point though. The point was that I really liked the world before that, the original vanilla world. Mob difficulty. Mobs can do some real pain in the ass things to you in vanilla WoW. For instance, even at a low level in Aberdeen, the rabid bears can give you god-awful diseases like rabies. You'll lose 4 agility and strength and get less health regeneration. But that makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, they're rabid. But it really makes things more difficult. Mobs can give you Curse of Mending, which makes you have a 20% chance to heal them when you hit them. Mobs can sleep you. They can heal too, and if you don't have an interrupt, you just have to kill the mob 2 times over. I know this may seem like something I don't like, but it's actually something I do like a lot. I don't like being able to face roll over everything. People are nicer. Because things can be so difficult, you'll find people are much nicer and much more appreciative of help. They're also more likely to accept a group invite if you're both doing the same quest instead of rushing in to kill everything on their own like people do today, leaving you to wait for the respawn. I think this comes to a base necessity that if people need you, they will likely be nicer to you and to everyone. I always remembered people being so much nicer during vanilla. Seriously, I don't really remember anyone ever being an outright jerk to me. Contrast that to today's crowd, where people are saying crappy stuff in trade nonstop, and most of your interactions with people outside of your guild are negative ones. Actually, I did just think of a case where someone was a jerk to me in vanilla, but it was a horde guy who was flagged and standing on a mob to get me to hit him by accident so he could gank me. But that's expected considering we were opposing factions. Anyway, I've always wondered why the crowd in WoW got so toxic. Was it younger kids coming in that had less scruples about playing well with others? Was it less policing by Blizzard? Was it because server communities had mostly been disrupted by transfers, name changes, and eventually cross-realm? Who can say for sure, but it's funny that during my time on the private server, people have been really awesome. I actually find myself typing out /hi to everyone I pass by. Seriously, it's kind of weird. In a few instances, I've helped save people's asses, and they have been grateful, either whispering me to thank them or giving me a /bow. There have even been a couple instances where I've grouped with someone that was doing the same quest as me, and we hung out for like an hour or more just questing. It occurred to me that the reason why people seemed nicer in vanilla wasn't just because of all the things I mentioned, but because we couldn't just do it on our own. If you can face roll something on your own, no problem. This eliminates the need for interaction. I mean, think about it. If you see someone killing a mob and you know it's not that hard, you're a lot less likely to care. You'll just keep walking. Whereas if you know the mob is more difficult, as all of them are, you're probably going to check the person's health. And if you see it's low, you're going to think, man, I know how much trouble they're having, I'm going to help. And so you do. And that person's grateful, so they thank you. And maybe at this point you part ways, or maybe you talk more and you make a friend. Or maybe you see them later in town and do a /wave that just adds to your general sense of inclusion in this world. It's something the current game just doesn't have. You can stand in a city surrounded by hundreds of players and not know a single person. Sense of accomplishment. So this game can be a bit more difficult, especially if you're playing by yourself. You have to carefully weave your way through monsters and try to get one at a time if you can. Sometimes you can't avoid getting 2 mobs at once though, especially if they're one of those mobs that have guards. And the way you go about defeating such a foe can be an incredible challenge, but also a huge sense of accomplishment if you can actually do it. You might find that you are more prone to congratulating yourself out loud, first in surprise and then with a bit of pride. This all leads to my next favorite thing, which is character attachment. After somehow managing to kill 3 mobs at once, whether it was because you sapped one and used evasion to down the other 2 quickly, or because you managed to heal your pet through the assault, maybe you killed one, died, and then came back to finish off the other 2 more easily. But you used your toolkit, and you got it done. I can't even tell you how many times I find myself thanking my pet, and sort of cooing to it while I use Mend Pet. Who's a good boy? I realized at this point that this is the sort of attachment you can only really get through difficulty, as well as involvement. You'll also be spending so much time leveling your character that you can't help but feel more attached to it. As you're running, you're not only looking around at the environment, but you're looking at your character. And it also ties into this next point, and that's bigger toolkits. My hunter is 23 now, and I have a good chunk of my skills. Not all, obviously, but enough for me to realize, wow, we've lost a lot of skills. I have always had a hunter, and since WoD, I can't bring myself to play it anymore. It just feels so dumbed down. It was so cool to actually have skills again, like Aspect of the Hawk. Holy crap, I forgot about that skill. And then getting both Ice Trap and Immolation Trap. Scorpid Sting, which I completely forgot about, a PvP skill that reduces agi and strength. A controllable hunter's mark again, that not only made you deal more damage, but made it so rogues couldn't go back into stealth. Aspect of the cheetah, still alive and in its original form, 30% run speed all the time, with a 100% chance to get dazed if struck. Skills like Eyes of the Beast, that allowed you to control your pet for up to 50,000 yards. This might have some practical uses, but it was mostly just awesome to have it and use it for whatever dumb purpose you want, like maybe bugging a friend. Disengage didn't throw you back, but was used to drop aggro if you pulled it off your pet. Ultimately, this is replaced by Feign Death, which you get around 30 or so, but it's still nice to have it in case Feign Death is on cooldown. I guess the point is that there was just so much more. I loved having the freedom to choose what I used, and with bigger talent trees, you could affect your skills even more. You can add 6% speed to your Aspect of the Cheetah, for instance. All of these points just really seem to tie in together, you know? Like when you just don't feel like you can do much, like you only have these few skills that you can use, it just kills the attachment. Splendor. Another part of the atmosphere that I loved was just coming across something really amazing for the first time. Like finding the Dalaran shield in Hillsbrad and wondering what the hell it was and wanting to see if it actually went all the way around. Or how about coming into a clearing with Elite Dragonkin and then seeing a World Dragon at the helm. These sorts of experiences were unforgettable, and just knowing that they were there added some magic to the world. Like, for instance, maybe you couldn't kill the Dragonkin as a noob, but you might store it in the back of your head to come back when you're a higher level with some friends to see what might be hidden in the area around. I remember once when I was leveling my first character to 60, I was in Ashera doing quests when all of a sudden I came across a whole raid group of people and a world dragon, Azergos, wreaking havoc amongst them as it feared them all what seemed non-stop. I stood there kind of dumbfounded as this was the first world boss I had ever seen. I just stood there and watched for a while before eventually I got dragged into combat. I ended up getting away, thankfully, but I remember that experience and it added such a level of enjoyment for me when it came to the whole zone. I actually to this day remember Ashera very fondly because of it. Whenever I was there, I thought there was a chance I might see Azergos again, and I might see someone fighting him too. All of these things added to that feel that the game had, and this went past even the first time. Just them being there was enough. Immersion. Now, everyone tends to choose this as a talking point, but I'm going to use it as more of a collection of everything I've mentioned in this video that all comes together to help you feel immersed in the world and in your character while you play. The weather, the atmosphere, even the difficulty all help to shape the way you feel about your character and the world. The fact that you can't easily bypass enemies, that doing just about anything takes some time and dedication, concentration. When you sit down for a play session, it's like you're going off to another world. This collective feeling has got to be my favorite thing about Vanilla WoW. I have to admit, I've spent a lot of time talking with friends about why WoW just doesn't feel the same anymore. I've tried to figure out where it went wrong and why it just isn't as fun to me now. I have a rather love-hate relationship with the current game these days. I don't adjust well to all the character changes, especially skill pruning. Every time I fall in love with something in the game, it seems, next thing I know, Blizz takes it away. If they take away so much I can't play the character anymore, this also completely negates all the time I've spent on it, and I may have to split ties with a character I really liked. Still, I always come back out of nostalgia. I'll start thinking about Murlocs or some other silly thing from the game, and maybe I can make it work this time. After playing vanilla again, though, it feels like recapturing that magic. It feels so much like it used to feel when I played in 2005. Will it be completely the same as it was playing the first time through? Of course not. It can't be exactly the same. But that feel of all the things I mentioned here will still be there, and that's going to be an amazing alternative to playing the current client. So here's hoping we get an update soon, and until then, I'm going to keep working on leveling. I'm really excited and also pretty nervous about where Classic is going to go. I'll see you guys later.